On. And welcome to the next edition of Chocobo Chasers. I'm G. I'm joined by the Chocobros, Eric and Dash, as always. And joining us today is a very, very special guest, the one and only Amelia Tyler.
Oh, hi.
You may recognize her soothing tone as the narrator in Baldur's Gate 3. You can also find her work in Dark Pictures, Switchback VR, Divinity Original Sin 2, Pathfinder, Wrath of the Righteous, and you're also going to be able to catch her in the highly anticipated 80s too. So Amelia, it is amazing to have you on the show today.
It's awesome to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. Eric, why don't you go ahead and get us kicked off, man?
Yeah, so looking at a lot of your credits through your career, it seems like 2015 is kind of when you started hitting the voice acting part for video games pretty hard and kind of ran away with it. So can you kind of tell us how that kind of came about for you? What made you want to hop into this side of it?
I mean, I've been a voice actor since I was 5 years old. So
oh, really?
1986.
Okay.
But video games back then didn't have voices or characters, or it wasn't like it is now. I think everything kind of changed with The Last of Us and BioShock, that kind of, the year those hit, and everything changed. So I remember watching the cutscenes for that and going, oh, what I can do is useful. Because I come from a professional voice, theatre, TV, movie, all these different little areas that come in really useful for video games, weirdly, because a lot of it is imagining or creating worlds, especially when it comes to mocap and full performance capture. I think you get a lot of people who specialize in one discipline who find it quite tricky to make that change, because you're taking all their toys away in some way. Like if you're a theater actor and you're being put on a mocap stage, like, well, there's no costume in there. The other people, it's not quite the same. So performance capture, you need like voice booth voice and stage physicality, but filmic face and that subtlety to it. So it's kind of a meeting of all the different things that I've been trained in. And I met my then best friend, now partner, life's weird. We met at a dinner for one of, we were both with the same voice coach in LA, and she came over to London and threw a dinner, and I almost didn't go. And I went there and we were chatting, and I was like, I've got this hypermobile face, it's ridiculous. And he was like, you should do mocap. They would love that for the kind of mocap that was going on back then. Like, they wanted really big expressions, something that was easy to capture. And that's how it started. I kind of hadn't done a video game before then, or any specific game training. So long and the short of it was chancing my arm and going for a weird dinner in London. But once
works out like that sometimes.
It just snowballed, I think, because we were just getting into that era that's bigger now, more recently, but of wanting cinematic acting in video games rather than something more cartoony. And that's where I thrive. That's where I love, just like rolling around and getting my teeth into a character, even if it's voice only, like making that feel real. And I think once people realized I could do that and could bring something unusual to it, because I've got a low voice for a woman, and I think a lot of the roles they tend to play tend to be originally written, or at least in the early days, were originally written for guys. And then somebody's gone into the writing room and gone, guys, we really need some like estrogen in this. We should maybe have a woman in a position of power, maybe. So they've just gender flipped a role and gone, I'll give it to Millie. She's good at like battle cries, and she's good at authority, I guess. Hilariously. Yeah. Sorry, I've just started having an existential crisis about what that means.
Dash, you wanna follow that up?
Yes. With us being a gaming podcast and you being a gamer, we gotta ask, what are some of your favorite games?
Ooh. Well, I just name checked a couple of them. Like, I started like way back. My dad got me into gaming when I was a little kid, so we were playing Treasure Island on the Commodore 64, I think it was, like proper way back. Still got a map we drew somewhere. And then it was things like Lemmings and Battle Chess, and that was my grounding. We had an Amiga inside the house, and it was just like those real basic games where mum would go dinner time and turn the thing off at the wall, and that's the game gone forever. Still a little bit traumatized by that. And then there was a big long gap, and this is where I feel like a bit of a fraud, because like my thumbs with a gaming pad, useless, absolutely useless, because I never had a console growing up. I was always mouse and keyboard good. So there was this big long gap, and then there was I can't remember what the game was that convinced me to get a PlayStation in the end. It was some like a walking sim type game, but I really liked the voice work in it. You were walking, I can't remember the name of it. You're walking through a village in England and seeing all these like little almost memory shards, like little glowy. And you're looking at what
I
happened.
think I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah.
about. It's not
Yeah, this is gonna drive me crazy.
okay. Keep going, because
That one.
I know
one.
what you're talking
Okay,
about.
Google it. But that convinced me to get a console, and then I think pretty shortly after that, The Last of Us and BioShock. Go on.
Everybody's Gone to Rapture, I think, is the
That's
game.
it, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, that convinced me to get a console. And then shortly after that, it was The Last of Us came out and BioShock. And at that point, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like the original BioShocks did it for me more than Infinite.
Yeah. I think
But there was
BioShock is
just
still the
this-
top one.
Yeah, it's just that atmosphere, right? And I like the creepy. So that makes me happy. But the style of acting, I think that happened with Infinite, it took it to a different level. So yeah, since then, I don't get as much time to game anymore as I used to, and that makes me really sad. Weirdly, lockdown and the whole COVID situation messed with my gaming hugely, because I've got really bad ADHD, so I have trouble remembering plot lines. So I have to play in a big long chunk. Like I've got so many unfinished games of Skyrim because I just forget where I store everything. Or one point I killed Pathfinder and then instantly regretted and had to just start the game again. I couldn't deal with my guilt. But I don't know. I find that very difficult. Not playing in a great big chunk. So I would wait until I got ill and then play. And then lockdown happens. I'm like, well, I'm not seeing humans anymore. This is great. I feel fantastic all the time, and I'm just working. No.
The adult life.
Yeah. So I'm kind of playing catch up at the moment, and I just started a playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3, which is making me really happy. But I want to spread my wings a little bit and diversify and try a little bit of lots of different things.
Oh yeah, there's so much out there.
Yeah.
So is there a franchise that you would love to maybe voice in or do something in if you've gotten the chance to do it? Or have you already had that chance to be part of a franchise that you want to be?
I mean, working with Larian is always amazing. Like this is the second time I've worked with them, and it's always such a joy. Working on the new Hades, you are unprepared is all I can say, because my God, it's so much fun. So much fun.
I just started it last week too, the first one. So I gotta catch up now.
Yep. Oh, there's so much I really want to say. I'll have to come back once it's out and I can actually say things. But yeah, you're in for a treat. Franchise-wise, I mean, there are so many, and I kind of I want to play characters that work for me. Like I would never have thought ludicrously that like playing Hecate, the goddess of witchcraft, like of course that's in my pigeonhole, but I would never have thought that was me 10 years ago. So what the hell do I know? You know? But I would love to do something in The Witcher, or do something in if there's a new kind of form of BioShock, or all the big ones that you hear about. But yeah. I kind of love the little interesting indie games that kind of push boundaries and try something a little bit different. They're always a lot of fun. So I can't really pick game wise.
Yeah. And we always talk about how important indie games are because they are what show like passion in the gaming industry compared to like the AAA stuff. So
Well, they take some big risks as well. And I find from an acting point of view, they are the ones who are less afraid to give me all the information. Like they'll give me a whole damn script if I want it. There is nothing hidden and they want me to be involved, and they'll a lot of the time like let me be part of the development process and making this character. I think AAA is starting to pick up on that kind of possibility of working more with actors, but it's much slower because the scale is so big and there's so much at risk and there's a lot more money to it.
the stakeholders.
Yeah, we must appease them. But it's all just part of a different organism.
Yeah.
Like it's easy to be scathing about that sort of thing, but you know, those big companies can afford to do what they do because of the way a lot of it's set up. Some of it we might not agree with, but that works as a different organism to an indie game, you know?
Yeah.
Definitely.
I love different things about different versions of that, but getting all your character context is always useful.
Eric, you want to follow that on there?
Yeah, so you mentioned that you worked with Larian twice, but you've also worked with Alcat Studios a couple times. And I mean, as far like both, I mean, their major titles the last few times have been hits. And what do you think they're doing that other companies can take note of? Is there something different that they're doing when you're working for these companies compared to other ones you have?
I mean, the writing is very deep and it has an opinion. These characters have an opinion and they're not afraid to show unconventional character types, unconventional feelings. Like my character in the latest Pathfinder game, Wendell, I've literally never seen a character, not just of that type, but with that kind of relationship style shown in a game in a way that was sympathetic and where people who are aligned to that kind of thing would see that and be seen by that and feel like it was done with love rather than just ticking a box or being judgmental. I don't want to spoil things for anybody who hasn't played, but yeah, she's very unconventional, and it's easy to see her at the beginning and just go baddie and shoot her in the face, and that's it, and you would be missing out. But
I missed out. I missed out.
Well, she's hard work.
I'm still working on Keymaker.
My lawful good paladin smited her into oblivion.
Oh no!
I will bet. God, if you're trying to romance me in Kingmaker, you are definitely in for a job. But that's the hilarious thing. Like the difference between Alcat and Larian is apparently Alcat want me to be romanced. This is what I'm boiling it down to. Alcat want players to romance me, and Larian are like, no, you are the voice of the woman who you can't get rid of. You can't romance, but you can't progress the plot without. I kind of love that, but everybody's like, just once, just maybe a little romance.
We'll start writing them stern emails for you.
We're gonna get a petition going immediately.
Oh
God! Make the narrator romanceable.
I swear to God, there have already been so many comments like that. Like, how do you think that would work? Like.
Oh, just appears as a spirit in a dream or something. Yeah.
And we go for a takeaway. Like, how's
ghost in a dream or something like that?
Yeah. Surprise, all the NPCs and me. You were romancing me all along.
The narrator's actually the emperor.
Yeah.
There was a lot of that to start with, like people like, oh, she must be the voice of this, or she must be the voice of that. She's the tadpole, she's the absolute. And like, no, you've just got a female dungeon master. Sorry. Like that.
There is no hidden agenda here.
For why I was there. I kind of love it, but I mean, there's been almost no negative feedback about that. I mean, the occasional bit about her on Reddit, but that's it. Like everybody
about Reddit.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's helpful to be aware, because if people would worried about something that was genuinely like made me go, oh shit, yeah, you're right. That is a good point. I would want to change up how I thought about things. But as it is, no, I don't agree with that. If you don't think there should be a female dungeon master, you should fix your relationships with women. That's it.
Might help.
Yeah.
So when you were auditioning for the role of the narrator in Baldur's Gate, did you have any idea, because the narrator's tone is actually, it's pretty close to, you know, your usual voice. Did you have any idea of like the voice that you wanted to convey, or did you kind of go in with any preconceived notion of, I'm going into the audition and I think this is how it should sound, or did they give you kind of more direction on what they're looking for, or kind of was it somewhere in between?
The narrator has changed a lot since
Okay.
I first auditioned and since early access. Because originally we went in and the direction I was given was Scar from The Lion King, like somebody sitting back, watching you fuck up repeatedly and finding it hilarious, like that arched eyebrow. And my main director at that point in the process was Josh, who had directed me and cast me as Malady in Divinity Original Sin 2. So he knew that when they came to him with that brief, like he was like, we need to audition Millie. So at that time, it was a very the narrator was very sit back and watch you. It was an outside person judging your experience, and all of it was done with this kind of wry smirk and this eyebrow raise. And then it got out of early access and people reacted to it and they were like, yeah, we really like the voice, but some people really didn't like that. And we came to the realization that essentially that if we kept with that style, it would be like being dommed for 100, 200 hours. And like, you need a break. That's a build up to it situation, you know? So they wanted something that was more the voice in your head rather than somebody external judging you. They wanted some empathy and some feeling in there. And yeah, the dungeon master has an opinion. But what we ended up honing in on is this is your dungeon master, like your ideal. The one person who sees your play style exactly how you want to play, no matter what that is, whether you're playing as a paladin or dark urge, and they're like, I am here for whatever the hell you want to do. Let's roll. So there are a lot of different styles. That wasn't there when I auditioned, but we slowly started adding to this list of different narration styles. So if you're playing as Dark Urge, you get a very different narration. If you're playing as Githyanki, you get moments of very different narration. If you're playing as any of the origin characters, you get moments when the narration is specifically for your character. You will notice that narration style echoes that character's speech patterns. It's not an impression, but it takes on. So Karlax is a bit more bouncy and a bit more informal, and Astarian's a little bit more smirky and flirty, and Shadowheart's a little higher pitched and a little more delicate. It's kind of fascinating, and we didn't plan that to start with, but from that origin point of we want this to be your narrator, this list just started building and building, and we ended up with, I think, 17. I thought it was 16. It's 17 different narration styles throughout the game.
Wow.
Yeah. And they're all my accent, which made it such a really cool acting, not a test, but it felt that way some way. Like, how do we make this sound distinct enough to be noticeable and to kind of honor this play style, but not be me putting on a voice, not be me being an NPC, because that's kind of where it differs from tabletop, right? This is a game, and when it is an NPC, it's a different actor playing that character. When I'm a narrator, I'm just me, but it's me in very different moods.
Dash, you wanna go next then?
So with the narrator role, I doubt there. I'm sure there wasn't much like mocap involved for that.
No,
But
zero.
yeah,
I think
did
I'm
you
the
manage?
only one.
So you didn't get to do any mocap for the
No,
game
I
out.
recorded the whole thing from my home studio.
Yep.
I never left the house.
It's a shame because you have a very impressive like promo video for your mocap work on your
Oh, thank
YouTube
you.
channel. So
Yeah,
it's like they
I
should have
love
taken
mocap.
advantage of that. You're no stranger to that. They should have given you like some sort of NPCs or something that you
Oh,
could
I
just
would have loved that. Just something little. Maybe one day. Maybe one day. Someday. But yeah, it was just really nice to, I think, because of what was going on the last few years as well. It was very nice to have the security of being able to do that from home. And I know I was incredibly lucky for that. The majority of people didn't have that. So I was recording like all the way through lockdown. And I was locked down for a lot longer than most people because I've been working on a lot of titles that if I got ill, that would have completely messed up a lot of production schedules. Ugh. I'm not terrified about doing conventions soon. Anyway, if somebody gives me a cold, I'm just going to lose it.
Eric, that's actually kind of a great segue into your question.
Yeah, so you're a huge fan of tabletop RPGs. You know, kind of you talk about it a good bit. Were you into that before you started doing voiceover work? And if so, what are your favorite ones?
Well, I mean, I started doing voiceover work when I was 5, so no.
No.
But I got into tabletop. God, I think I was in my mid-30s. I was very late.
Oh, really?
Very late. Like I've been playing board games, but tabletop role play, really late. But got into it fast and got very addicted very quickly because it's all the things I love about my job and none of the things I don't. And you get to play and have that interaction with other people, which you don't get in a voice booth. And you get to have a say in what your character thinks and feels and does. And you don't get that. So it's sort of getting to play in the way that players have with the results of my work. That freedom is a lot of fun. Yeah, I adore it. I've done so many different campaigns in so many different systems. A lot of them streamed, some of them not. I'm into D&D offline campaigns at the moment that I'm just having a ball in.
What are your classes?
In one of them, I am playing a Tabaxi rogue thief.
Okay. Called Pebble, and she is very small and very bouncy, and she just steals all the things.
But in that group, we have another person who also has a lot of theft skills. And I kind of thought, because my big thing is make this fun for everyone to play together. Like, I don't care if I win. I want everybody to enjoy this experience. And I didn't want the whole group to be like, oh, God, we've got 2 thieves. We keep getting kicked out of towns. Nobody wants to talk to us anymore. We're constantly in jail. So I started rolling a D20 every time I entered a store or something impressive or shiny that she might like came up. And the higher the number, the more tempting she finds that thing. So it's kind of helped the other player enjoy that experience more. And it's made it fun for me to sort of play a very skilled thief. Like, they have no idea. Her stats are insane. But watching her try and go through cold turkey is really fun. Like, trying to stop
Just
her.
over here, like scratching her neck. Got any more trinkets and baubles?
Yeah. So that's one of them, and we are just a complete shit show together. It's such a fun group. And the other one, I am playing a centaur druid, Circle of the Shepherd. So I describe her as a hoofy, socially anxious Snow White. She likes animals and people are weird. And she's very northern and doesn't really know how to people at all. But she got force-fed cake for the first time our last session, and apparently that unlocks her face side. And the sugar crash is going to be insane because she just ended up super happy about everything and full of energy and making very bad choices. But yeah, D&D, I've played a lot of like Vampire the Masquerade. I've played a lot of A Song of Ice and Fire, the Game of Thrones game. A bunch of like Cult I've played, Unknown Armies, God, tons of things. And I love them all for different reasons. It's like finding that perfect party, right? Finding a group that gels together. And when it happens, you just never want to stop playing with those people.
Absolutely
best.
true.
Yeah.
Dash coming in with our second to last question.
So you've done narration for documentaries also. So how's that compared to being a narrator in a video game?
It depends on the style of narration they want. Like for most TV stuff, it's that kind of almost Attenborough thing, where you're just describing what's going on screen and you're trying not to put too much personality into it. You're facilitating, let's say. Whereas I think narration is moving, certainly for something like Baldur's Gate 3, it's moving into a more interesting era now, where the narrator is a character on their own.
Yep.
And they have an opinion and they have a kind of vibe to them. And that kind of narration is so much more interesting. It's been very cool watching people experience Dark Urge for the first time and be like, wait, you're having feelings about, like, you sound like a character. I'm like, yeah, I am. I'm the secret origin character you didn't know about in this, because this origin character doesn't talk apart from in the intro screen and, occasionally stumbling over rocks and stuff. Like, I'm this character's brain. Hi. I didn't want to, like, straight out of the gate when the game came out. You can't shout about that because you've got to wait for people to discover it and enjoy it.
Yep.
But I'm starting doing a Dark Urge playthrough myself now. So I think I'm done keeping that a secret.
Yeah, I saw some of the clips and they're great.
So much fun.
Rolling a D20 right at the beginning.
Yeah. Well, I decided that I didn't want to play into that stereotype because I'm going to be hearing my own voice doing that kind of read, that kind of growly, predatory read all the way through. And having two of those will be confusing and crap. So what can I do that will make that different? And it just so happens my partner and I used to role play on a server together, an online role play thing, as brother and sister, Lucius and Violet Alabaster. And they were just the most dreadful people on the face of the earth, but very polite. And just sort of, Violet doesn't know she's dreadful, but she's very girly and very feminine and the least likely person really you'd think to be a psychotic killer. But she has these funny turns occasionally and, oops, that's so much more fun to play. Like somebody trying to resist this urge and occasionally just going, oopsie, oh no. It's, it's a lot of fun playing against type.
Yeah. I think that's what makes the Dark Urge playthrough much more interesting is like some people thought, oh, you're just going to be evil. It's like, no, what makes it interesting is that you're trying to resist this feeling, or you can play into if you want to.
Yeah.
I find it more interesting to try and resist because it adds this depth of character to this Dark Urge.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of there to be everything, right? You can be the murder hobo or you can be like the paladin with fear. That makes it so much more juicy. And I will hold my hands up. When I first got the script for Dark Urge through, I was like, oh, it's the murdery storyline. Okay, cool. I called him Dark Edge for a very long time. Oh, he's such an edgy boy. But it ended up being my favorite narration. I just love it. And it's a story that not many people up until now have started to experience. And it's really cool seeing them realize that there is a whole underlying plot that is tied into every part of this game and you only get to experience it as Dark Urge.
Yep.
So cool. So cool.
I gotta do it now because my first playthrough was just with a regular tab, so now I gotta do a Dark Urge one.
Do it.
So for our final question, so you've been cast as Hecate in Hades 2, which you mentioned earlier, which is so awesome. Hades is one of my personal favorite games over the last decade. The way they told the story, voice acting, it's such a unique game. And hearing about how Darren Korb he almost fell into the role of Zagreus, and his experience with Supergiant Games was very, very positive. So I wanted to hear what your experience was like, and how has that been working in coordination with Supergiant Games so far?
I have to be so careful what I
Right,
say
right.
now,
Yeah.
because I desperately want to go, here is all
Yeah.
the wonderful stuff about working with them, but it would give you massive spoilers, and I don't want to do that. It has been an absolute joy. And I know that sounds wanky as hell, but it really has. And getting to play a character like that, I have to be so careful wording this, that has depth in ways that you aren't expecting. I feel like between the narrator and Hecate, people are going to see the real me. In the next year, it will be like, there you go, because I'm not one of these actors that does a million accents. All of these got vaguely my own voice. It's just, Hecate's aged up a little bit and the narrator goes a bit growlier. I feel, I don't believe in fate like that, but I feel like that is one of the roles I was meant to play. And I very rarely feel like that, but yeah, it's been so lovely to be seen for what I am, and to be placed in a role and given so much trust with bringing that to life. And they're a fantastic team. They just, it makes me a little bit emotional, because I think people are going to get stuff with this role that they're not anticipating. We all know Hades is a little bit of a horn fest.
Yeah.
There is depth to this, and I'm very excited for everybody to get to see it.
My hype level is at like 1,000 right now, so
Raise it.
I'm
Seriously,
ready.
dude, you are not prepared in any way.
Day one, I'm there. So
There's
Well,
not a release date yet, is there?
so I think they said Q1 or Q2 2024 right now is when it's going to
Okay.
launch in early
Yeah.
access. So
I got time still then.
yeah. So
You'll be all right.
Amelia, I want to say thank you so much. I speak for all of us when I say this has been so incredible. You have such a cool career, and hearing about your experiences working in the video game industry has been one so enlightening, but also so fun. I think that our listeners are going to have an absolute ball, kind of just hearing all of this. But we also wanted to give you the opportunity as well. Like, is there anything you kind of wanted to shout out? Any projects that maybe you wanted to bring attention to, or anything of that like?
Oh, there are, but I can't talk about them yet. There's so much exciting stuff going on I can't talk about right now. But I can talk about my Twitch stream, I guess.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that thing I was talking about, we're doing a Baldur's Gate 3 playthrough, me and my other half, Jay Britton. And we're both streaming on our channels independently, and you can multi-link so you can watch us at the same time. It is an absolute shit show and so very silly, and we're having a lot of fun, and everybody else seems to agree. So come swing by our Twitch streams and watch us play the most dreadful English siblings in the entire world. Watch me try and fail to not do awful things to all your favorite characters. I think the next stream, we're definitely streaming Mondays, 6 p.m. UK time. So that's 1 Eastern, 10 Pacific.
Okay.
And I think we're streaming Tuesday this week as well. It's convention season coming up, so things are going to be a little bit higgledy-piggledy for a couple of months. But yeah, follow me on Twitter and find out all about it. And follow Jay too, because he's very funny.
Any
Awesome.
conventions you coming to the States for? Or?
I hope so. That's all I can say about that right now. But I think a lot of people don't realize, unless somebody invites us, probably won't go. So you can kind of ask conventions to get your favorite people along, and maybe that will make that happen.
We're gonna poke and prod. So
yeah, poke them.
Awesome. Well, again, Amelia, this has been so awesome. I feel like I've been smiling and my face almost hurts because I've been smiling gaily this whole entire interview.
Like that for
again-
every interview,
Yeah,
honestly.
I know. But again, we want to thank you so much. This has been an absolute blast. I know that everyone is going to absolutely love listening, and we're going to make sure to go ahead and link your socials as well so that people can find yours and Jay's Twitch, also your Twitter as well. And we appreciate everybody listening. We'll catch everybody next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Later.